Today we're continuing our look at comics prized by collectors but relatively unknown to the average superhero fan. Justice League Issue 1 from 1987 is by no means the first appearance of the famous team, but the first issue in a newly revamped series. When DC decided to overhaul their flagship team book, they were taking a huge risk. Popular characters like Superman, Wonder Woman, and the Flash were nowhere to be seen. For the uninformed modern reader, Batman remains the only recognizable face in the group. Instead of the popular Hal Jordan Green Lantern, the fill-in Guy Gardner held a spot on the team, and where Superman may have fit the muscle of the group, Captain Marvel stood in. Justice League mainstays Martian Manhunter and Black Canary maintain their positions, but also their relatively low profiles, while characters like Dr. Fate, Mr. Miracle, and Oberon held rich comic book history. They did not necessarily have large fan bases, and both Dr. Light and Lupita were virtually brand new to the DC universe. At first glance, this appears to be a losing combination, but writers Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis and artist Kevin Maguire had a number of tricks up their sleeve. For starters, we're introduced to a new character, Maxwell Lord, the businessman who would eventually end up representing the Justice League. No longer was this team above the law, above government, and the final word of justice, but a group grounded in the political landscape of the 1980s. The other element that would define this era of the Justice League was the humor. Each creator knew the beats of comedy, and the expressions, dialogue, and character interactions brought a new layer of levity to what could have been a typical superhero book. This first issue treats readers to a gathering of our heroes, establishing each personality and seemingly setting the team on a path of self-destruction. When reserve member Dr. Light runs into trouble at the UN, the gang is called into action. The 1980s political scene is on full display here, with terrorists spouting relevant issues and an overarching feeling that big business might be behind everything. Internal conflicts aside, the team prevails and the day is won. With its perfect balance of pertinent storytelling and natural humor, this volume of the Justice League has aged incredibly well. Though readers may still find themselves trying to catch up with unfamiliar characters, this first issue is a great example of comics rising above their shortcomings. Giffen, DeMatteis, and Maguire were able to create a unique brand of comic storytelling, relying heavily on character expressions and interaction. This version of the Justice League will continue for well over 100 issues, branching off into a Justice League Europe title, a large quarterly book, and numerous annuals, with various artists coming on board, new scriptwriters, and constant team shakeups. The tone and quality storytelling helped maintain the consistency of the title for years, and this era of the Justice League has become a treasured memory to many collectors. To find out if the average non-comic reading reader could treasure such a book as well, I turned to Carolyn for her thoughts.
What did I think about it? Well, I don't read comics. I didn't know too many of the characters. I do know Batman and the Green Lantern, but otherwise I really didn't know the characters. Not particularly. I read novels often, and I don't normally read comics. This one didn't particularly urge me on to read the next issue. Well, I first of all understand that this is not the first Justice League. This is a reformed Justice League based on a past one. But it seems like this Justice League was formed because America really needed the Justice League to help keep the villains at bay, so to speak. That's really what my understanding is. Whether that's true or not, that's tough, because a novel usually gives a pretty good introduction. Every time you read a novel, it usually gives a pretty good introduction. Well, this one didn't really give me too much of an introduction as to who people were and what was going on, just a tiny bit. And I was feeling rather confused at the beginning. It wasn't until I got good ways in that I really put it all together. I think regardless of the year that it was written, the story still stays and stands true to this day. It's like you could have a comic written in 2000 that could be based on a similar story. It wouldn't, and the fact that they're wearing their costumes, it doesn't reflect the era so much as, it's not dated. I think that kids recognize these characters, and find comfort in their stories.